crazy idea or another. So the idea that your perceptual experience is actually a composite of these images and seemings is sort of my token crazy idea. Okay, there were other questions. Yeah, Richard?
Well, I just thought it would be interesting in this talk if instead of just doing perception and religious experiences, you compared perception, religious experiences, and hallucination. Because, I mean, could you explain why hallucination would be any lower down the epistemological food chain than religious experience?
Well, it's not clear that hallucinations are lower down the food chain than religious experiences. So think about, I mean, what's disturbing about movies like The Matrix or Inception? You can easily be fooled. It seems like the rational, if you're right now on an Inception dream, the rational thing to do is believe that you're hearing some guy in a blue shirt ramble on about something that seems weird. So it's not, and here's another example. The Mueller-Liar illusion or whatever, you guys know this, the lines, so you've got two lines that are in fact the same length, but because of the way these things, the arrows, one of them looks longer than the other. And the first time you see that, it's rational to believe one line is longer than the other, even though they're both the same length. So it's not clear that hallucinations are worse off, unless, of course, if you know it's a hallucination, that's a different story. Or if you know you've been, meth or whatever if you've been taking meth or whatever the hallucinogenic drugs are these days, and you know that, right? Then you've got this evidence that, if you see a pink bunny flying through the air bringing candy canes to everyone, you've got a good reason to believe that that's a hallucination. So but if you have no reason to believe that it's a hallucination in the perceptual case, then it might be just as good off in terms of rationality as the veridical case. And so, to make the application to religious experiences, those people whose religious experiences are actually hallucinations of various kinds, it still might be the rational thing for them to do, to believe that God exists or whatever the religious claim happens to be. So hallucinations don't prevent rationality. And there's very popular intuition. Okay, there was a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed it, but I'm still struggling to see the distinction in why there's a gap there between the blue dragon and God. Why are they not in the same slot? I mean, for one thing, at least your blue dragon you posited exists in the real world. So I could go out and dig up Ringi Toto and find evidence for it. So I find that more believable than a supernatural being. Well, yeah, so like I said, some people would put it lower, and I don't really want to give arguments for that, but I will sort of respond to the idea that just because something is a physical thing, it seems to be much more believable. There's some people, there are a lot of, it's actually very popular in metaphysics, which isn't really what I work on, the nature of reality stuff, to think that there's a lot of stuff that ain't physical that exists. Think about the number one. Some people think that that is an object of a certain kind. And in order to explain the kind of objectivity that we've got in math, it's like if someone goes 1 + 1 = 35, they like made a mistake. They're wrong and stuff. And it's supposed to be, some people say, look, in order to make that work, there's got to be something, number one, that bears certain relations to number two and so forth. So, but isn't that just the concept of identity? That's basically logic as a concept. Concepts are another thing people think are not physical. That A is A and not A is not A. So the idea that this table is a table, and even if there wasn't anyone around to see it, it still exists as the table. So even if you went here to conceptualize one still exists as a concept. It doesn't need a physical being to interpret it. Yeah, but so what is so one exists? You said one exists,
even if
As a concept.
one exists as a concept, whatever you want to call it, whether or not somebody exists. Now, this concept is existing when no one's around believing it. Where is it existing?
Well, it's physical. Well, it's not a physical force, but it is a concept that you couldn't have a physical reality without.
Okay, but look, so you're already leaving maybe you're going to believe in concepts as things that aren't physical. And so already that should make you a little bit less certain of the move from it ain't physical to it doesn't exist. And there are all sorts of, other things. So I know that if you've had, your first philosophy course, you made fun of Plato's theory of the forms and whatnot. But there are a lot of people who think something slightly more interesting, some slightly more sophisticated theory, like Plato's forms, are true. They think that there are some, like property red or tall. These are things that exist that aren't physical. And they give various arguments for them. I don't know whether any of these things are good arguments. But the point is, a lot of experts in philosophy who would think believing God is stupid and silly still believe in stuff that ain't physical. And it sounds like maybe even you believe in stuff.
Well, red is something physical, but I mean, red is light. Is an interpretation of the physical property.
Well, so I'm just telling you, it's popular among some people to think the property red is not a physical object, and colors are really
red is
weird.
a perception of a physical object.
So I think we should move on, but
Maybe time for one last question.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I sort of had two questions and I thought about asking them in a certain order, but now I've just been thinking which one should come first. But I'm just wondering whether perceptual arguments...
You can give one of your questions as an assertion. Then,
Oh, sorry. I'm curious,
Okay.
because I was looking at Tim, he brought up the whole consistency thing of 20 people were to walk in. Should perceptual arguments be taken just in the absence of others anyway? When you're talking about your own perception, should you even worry about what 20 other people are, or what 40 or 50?
well, let's put it this way. Suppose you're sitting up in the business school, and was it Spicer's? Is that what the cafe is on the third floor?
Yeah, whichever one it is.
Yeah, so you're enjoying a latte and a caramel slice, and you look out and you say, oh, there's our lecturer from whatever class, philosophy class, and your friend is in philosophy class, that you both know this guy very well. You say, look, there's the lecturer. I can see him right there. I can see him very clearly. And the other guy's like, dude, there's no one there, right? I don't know what the heck you're talking about. What are you pointing at? And you keep doing this, and you say, emphatically, there he is right there, and your friend disagrees, and you have no reason to believe he's playing a trick on you. You probably will back off your belief, right? So there is at least some sense in which you should pay attention to what other people say, because if they disagree with you, you're inclined to back up and say, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe one of us is seeing things. I'm not sure. Or either I'm seeing things or he's got blind spots. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, then just with that whole, if 20 people walk in and see a chair, and the chair in reality is like thinking coffee, but everyone perceives it wrong, or when there's a consensus, you sort of brought up, well, maybe there might be consistency in tea reading and stuff or whatever. I mean, if we were to sort of find that things like tea reading and horoscopes and astronomy were all false, and that maybe there was only one sort of consistency, and that was maybe the observation of chairs, then could we then say, well, this one is probably should go up a bit higher than tea reading and horoscopes and possibly blue dragons things?
Well, if the method of forming the belief on the basis of tea readings or the arrangement of stars or whatever is internally, or the magic 8 ball, right? So you shake it up. Will I win the lottery tomorrow? Yes, right? Is the magic 8 ball trustworthy? No, right? If it gets these kind of results,
then that's certainly bad for it. And it sounds like you were describing the tea leaf people and the star readers as having this kind of practice which was internally inconsistent.
Yeah, I'm just sort of wondering, like, can arguments like, you know, tea reading could be consistent, but, you know, we wouldn't say that that's as believable as the chair in front of us. Would those be valid if we found that tea reading was not, in fact, consistent at all? And, like, maybe some of these other things which we use to argue against the viewing of chairs are not consistent at all.
This isn't a complete response, but for the sake
Oh, yeah,
of
yeah,
time,
no,
it'll
sorry,
be
I'm
short.
really
Yeah, so,
interested.
even if tea reading is consistent, presumably it's not rational in the same way that relying on perceptual experience is not. It is rational. Why is that? Well,
I'm trying to say that maybe tea
the
reading
reason is because it's only rational only some faculties get a default trust. Perception seems to be one of them. Tea reading doesn't.
Yeah. And sorry, that's what I sort of meant. Like, can you use tea reading as an argument against, you know, consistency arguments for perception? Sorry, I'll drop it. Thanks.
That's about all we have time for. So.